All right. Hello, everyone. I hope this sound is muted. Guys, you all can
Yeah.
read the chat, right? Is it live for everyone? Guys, press 1 if you can hear me loud and clear. Is it? Yeah, it's unmuted. Yeah. There is a slight frame drop, which is fine. Yeah, perfect. Yes. All right.
Also, if you could simultaneously put that presentation to download on your laptop, if
Yeah, yeah,
if you can on the
it's
screen,
already on.
that
It's
would,
already on.
because there are a lot of content in that which is, I think, a lot more important than what I have covered in this.
Done, done. So it's already live. We are
Right.
also live on YouTube. Can
Okay.
you did you get the link?
Yeah, I'm on it as well. I
Yes.
can
All
see the
right.
chat.
Perfect. Guys, meet Aditya Damle. He is a
Hello,
crazy,
guys.
mad, talented person, and we wanted to call Aditya for so long, and it's finally happening. Are you all excited? Not audible? Give me 1 second. How is that possible? Check your volume button. I think you are only the person who's facing. Let me see. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's audible. It's audible. Check your mic. Or check your speakers. Sumit. It's gonna lag a little bit. I'm really sorry. थोड़ा थोड़ा बीच में होगा because of the bad weather here in Mumbai. And I'll leave this presentation with for Aditya. But before starting, Aditya, I want to know your story. How you started
Yeah.
illustrations? How was it like for you? Everything.
Right. Okay, I'll jump into it. Let's start. Hey, guys. Thank you for having me here. I am excited to be doing this. We've been like once you said, we were planning to do this for a while, and it's finally happening. So that's great. I'm gonna quickly sort of give a small introduction about who I am and what my journey has been so far for those of you who have not had a chance to see my work. And then we can jump into some of the projects, and we can even go into some case studies and talk about them in detail, right? Feel free to ask questions during this. I think Vansh has already prepared a few questions that he wants to ask. Along with that, if anybody else also wants to ask questions, feel free. Uh, I see damn design like damn design. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of the idea. But yeah. Anyway, so I run an independent design studio called Damn Design, as mentioned. It's a small team of like 4 or 5 people where it's a remote working studio. We mainly do branding, packaging, and illustrations, and sometimes motion graphics, and sometimes websites as well. Right. My personal skill set lies in illustration and branding. So that is the side of the work that I'm usually sort of handling, right? Apart from that, we also have another collective that we've started. This is a collective started by me and two of my friends, Anshal and Sharik, who run two separate agencies as well. So it's the collective is called Studio Entropy. So we have a bunch of properties that we are sort of trying to launch under that as well. And it's essentially a collective of multiple studios. It's like a studio made out of studios of sorts. So yeah, that's pretty much a little bit of background about me. So I started working professionally, I would say, since 2015, 16ish, when I was in college. Like most other creative professionals, you start working while you're in college, doing small freelance projects here and there, right? And I guess eventually in 2018 is when I started working. Like once I graduated, I started working professionally. I worked for a few months and I realized it was not really my calling, working at another agency, because I wanted to work as an illustrator and not necessarily have to do things that other graphic designers have to do. Whereas I just wanted to draw at that point, right? And so I kind of left and started freelancing on my own. I realized that as a independent illustrator, I have a lot more opportunities to work with other studios, because a lot of times other studios don't necessarily need a full-time illustrator. but they can hire an illustrator when they need for a project. So I started working on establishing connections with other studios and outsourcing my illustration services to them. Right. Eventually, I realized that I can't just do this on my own. It needs to scale up a little bit, and it has to be something more than just me. Right. That's when the idea of the start setting up a studio started. Right. So I started the studio back in 2019 with two of my classmates from MIT, Pune. Um, and it was a friend of mine, Anisa, who's a graphic designer, and another friend of mine, Adarsh, who was a product designer and a researcher. So three of us were the ones who started, and yeah, that's pretty much the story of like a little bit background about me and my work. What we can do now is maybe just go through the presentation, and I will take you through some of the projects I've worked on over the years. Right? You can go ahead.
Yeah, I think it will. Yeah. Is this visible to you?
Yes.
Perfect.
So these are some of the places where some of my work has been featured over the years. I've exhibited at galleries like Method. I was actually part of their uh, first ever design like art residency that they organized back in 2020 pre-pandemic. So I got to work with a bunch of other artists who were all working together to put together an exhibit. So yeah, go ahead. Uh, So over the years, I've also been painting live at like a lot of events, like Supersonic, for example, where I was exhibiting with Nritya. So they do like art pop-ups and exhibits at different like music events and concerts. Where this was one of the pieces that I was painting live for them. Actually, two pieces over there. Right. Go ahead. Is there a lag in the screen share
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well?
yeah. So the internet is a pretty has taken a big hit because of the weather. I'll be like prompt with it. Don't worry.
Right. Okay. No, here just some of the images from the gallery exhibit I did at Method, part of the spatial exhibit, right? The artist residency exhibit that I was telling you about. As you can see, that piece is in fact like right behind me over here. I don't know if you're able to see it here, but that was essentially a piece that I worked on for the first time after a long time. Like I had kind of stopped painting traditionally, and this piece was an opportunity to actually do this, like go back to canvas, go back to roots, essentially. You can go ahead.
Yeah.
So a lot of my work features mythology, right? And as you can see, I've tried to depict different characters from like mythologies across the world. If not directly inspired by a specific character, is just like traits and themes from mythologies sort of coming in. Like for example, the central character is inspired by Hecate. Hecate is the goddess of magic in Greek mythology, and the one on the right side is inspired by the fates from Greek and Norse mythology. Um, okay, next. So this is a series that I've worked on for at least 2 years. So for those of you who have been following my work on Instagram, you would know that I am kind of an obsessive person. When I find something, I am obsessed with it. I will make art about it until I get tired of it, and then I move on to something else. So this was one of those. This is Dune. I've been heavily inspired by science fiction, fantasy. You can just go back one slide. Yeah. So I took it upon myself as a challenge to sort of paint, basically paint a cover for each of the six Dune books, right? Whereas I'm depicting an idea or like a theme of the story without actually revealing too much of the story, while keeping a little bit of mystery intact, right? Because I'm kind of tired of seeing book covers where it's just faces of people or just abstract colors or whatever, like just imagery that makes absolutely no sense, right? So my idea was to do a little bit of storytelling with this, and that's what I've tried to do. Like after having read all the books, try to capture small elements of the story and depict that through an illustration. Yeah, you can go ahead. This was a project done for this is a project done for back in 2020 during pandemic. It was in collaboration with Indie Folio, and so they were doing NFTs back then, and they had reached out to a bunch of artists and given them tarot cards to work with and essentially pick up a character and create an interpretation of that character, right? So these were the three characters that I picked up, like from Hermit to Justice and Death, right? So from left is the Hermit, and the middle one is Justice, and the rightmost is Death. So just to point out like small elements of storytelling in there, right? Like the character of Death and Hermit are kind of almost mirror images of each other, right? The idea was to create a series of characters that look alien enough, right? They look otherworldly, sort of like entities. So the character of Death is holding a symbol in its hand, right? It's a symbol of life, which is an Egyptian symbol called Ankh. Then, if you look at the central character, which is the justice character, right? The justice character is usually shown with a sword and a scale. So, what I have tried to do is depict that same sword and a scale, but through a level of abstraction in there. Yeah, that's about it. You can go ahead to the next one. Again, some of these, one of the first one is a self portrait, right? It's kind of like a visualization exercise I did for myself back then, of like some like it's something that's very personal to me and may not necessarily make sense to anybody else. It represents certain ideas and themes that, or just goals that I have for myself. And this is just my way of visualizing myself achieving those goals. Whereas the ones on the middle and the right side, they're part of a series that I was working on called Losing My Religion, which explores the idea of mythology, religion, faith, and people's relationship with the idea of God, right? So those were some of the artworks from that series. You can go ahead. These are again the artworks continuing from the same series, which was Losing My Religion. Uh, Again, a lot of self portraiture. You see a lot of self portraits in my work in general, right? But you also see a lot of people, my friends featured. Like for example, the central, the image of the hands was actually a friend of mine who's like who used to do pottery, and I'd used a reference of her hands as a reference to create an artwork. Yeah. Anyway, you can go on, move on to the next one. So here are some of the more commercial, like some of commercial projects that we've done under Dam Design. So this was a client that we've been working with for the past 3 years. It's called Jolie's. Jolie's is a club based out of South Bombay by Aditya Birla. So this was a packaging project and a Diwali hamper project that we did for them. The hamper is on the right side, whereas the packaging is on the left side. You can go ahead. So here are some of the illustrations that we did, inspired by like this sense of surrealism and mythology, which is essentially what the vibe of Jolie's is as a club, right? So again, this is has been one of the recurring clients that we've worked with over the years. Grasslands, it's a music festival based out of Nepal. This was, I think, the third edition, the most recent edition that we worked on in last October, right? So this included, the scope of work included everything from creating a key visual, what you see here, right, which is one visual that captures the idea of the entire look and feel of the festival, right? So that, and followed by all the collaterals that we had to design from everything from the entrance to the tickets to merchandise to everything else, right? So yeah, that is what we used to do for Grasslands. You will see more Grasslands work as well, as this was the first ever Grasslands artwork we did. A lot of the storytelling was inspired by like mythology from Nepal. So in order to be able to do some of that, you need to do a lot of research, right? And that research is what sort of fuels ideas when you're illustrating some of these posters, for example. Can you go ahead? Right. So this is so before I got into before I technically set up the studio and expanded to a team, this was one of my first few big projects that I worked on back in 2019. Is for Raja Kumari, for those of you who don't know. She is an Indian American hip hop artist, and she was performing at NH7 in 2019. She was the headliner. And the brief that I got was to create visuals for her performance. So the funny story here is so as you can see on the rightmost side, there's a small image of her performing with a bunch of screens that are segmented, and you see illustrations there, right? So the idea was to create illustrations that were looped and they were going to be played in the back while she performed. The funny thing was, we were never told that the screens would be segmented. We assumed that there would be one giant screen behind. And I was also like starting out, right? A lot of the things that I should have probably asked is something that I didn't really know at that point. So it was a big learning experience. The funny thing was, people who were watching the show live, they didn't really realize that it was a mistake. But I was like, oh, they're watching and cringing. I'm like, oh my god, the illustrations are not aligning, because we never planned for a setup like this, right? But yeah, that was just it turned out to look good, at least for people who didn't know the context or how they were supposed to look. These were some of the illustrations that we had done for your reference, and they were also looped. I don't know if they in this video, but I think we don't have the looped version of them in this presentation specifically. So you can maybe check them out on Behance or on our website. Right. So this was one of the projects that I had the pleasure of working on last year, end of last year, around October and November. So Foot Locker was launching in India, and they wanted to do an activation event at their launch in Delhi. So they had partnered up with Adidas Originals, where me and one more illustrator named Nikunj, you might also know him as Studio Mobius. The two of us were sort of commissioned to sort of create illustrations that were going to be used using heat press on the t-shirts, right? So these were two of the illustrations that we have created for them. Again, the idea was to bring in elements that are unique to me and my work, right? So you can see a lot of like mythology elements, but at the same time, I was working for a brand like Adidas, where having mythology that is very overt could be a problem, right? Because it could offend somebody, for example, right? It's a commercial project where we had to I had to like take a step back and figure out what is the right balance of including inspiration from mythology while sort of keeping it neutral enough or not problematic enough, right, for masses. So I think this is what we sort of came up with. We borrowed motifs and elements, but while creating an illustration which is completely different. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, this was some of the t-shirts that we printed. Is that it?
Yeah, that was it.
Right. So yeah, I mean, we can get into this as well. It's a quick presentation. It's part of like it's a case study of one of my recent ongoing projects. Right, this project is not over yet. I'm still working on it, right? And I think I'm going to be working on it for the next year or so. Um, so the idea with this project is to find a way to work with UFC, right? That's my end goal with this project. It started with me getting into UFC last year, and then I realized that hey, the posters that they're making are quite bad, right? And they're not doing any level of storytelling with it. It's just a bunch of faces, right? I think that is one of my problems with posters in general. A lot of movie posters also, all they go for is just faces, right? Just faces slapped on top of each other, and they do no level of storytelling in them, right? There's nothing that makes you excited for it because all you're doing is just looking at people's faces. So, that being said, let's quickly jump into it where I can take you through some of the posters that I have created for this over the past few months. So what I realize is if you want to do something, if you want to level up or you want to achieve a specific goal, right? What you need to do is create a challenge for yourself, right? So for me, The idea was to make work consistently, make posters on a like on a regular basis, because I realized sometimes when commercial work comes in, you you tend to just like sideline your personal projects. And I wanted to keep pushing myself, so I thought, why not do a poster a month? That seemed like a realistic goal for me, right? Because I can't spend a lot of time every day to work on something. So I can't be one of those people who makes an artwork a day, right? Because I have other responsibilities that I need to attend to as well. So, but making one artwork a month or maybe two artworks a month is something that was doable. So, as you can see, there's an image on the left, which is the original poster for this specific event. What I try to do is cap like try to create like tell a story about what the event is about, like where the event is happening, who are the people involved, what are the important fights that are happening. um, so that is one example, right? I can go ahead. So that was the first artwork I ever made, but the funny thing was, no, go back. There were two of 311. So this was the original poster for it, but just a day before the event was supposed to happen, one of the main event fighters dropped out. So I had to change the character, the person last minute, like the guy holding the flag, right? Um, so that's why I ended up like you can go to the first one, right? Can you just move to the first slide, the slide before this? Yeah, so I ended up changing the character very last moment, because well, I thought might as well just do it. If they can change it last moment, I can change it. Like, so yeah, that was fun. Go ahead. So with each poster, we have tried to do something more, right? Like because what I realize is all of these posters are just people staring into each other. Like that's all I'm doing. There's no sense of excitement. There's no sense of like it doesn't reflect the fight that we are about to see. So that's what I've tried to do in this one. The idea was to show it's a tug of war between two people. So the belt is literally being pulled by two people while they're like bashing each other, right? So a lot of these were also animated by a friend of mine, but I couldn't like I was not able to add the animations in this presentation right now with the time I had. Unfortunately, my laptop is kind of in the service center. It's not working. So anyway, that being said, can go to the next one. So yeah, again, you can keep moving one by one, right? Maybe stop on each of them for a second, maybe. So as you see, with each of these posters, I've tried to do something different. I maybe try a style that I have never tried before, try a composition that I've not tried before. Um, like for example, in this one, I thought, why not do like hand lettered typography, right? I did a hand lettered typography in the first artwork, but for in this one, typography is playing a big role in it, right? It's dominating a big chunk of the poster as well. And this was the most recent one. Yeah, this was a poster for a fight that never happened. So it was a what if poster, right? Inspired by Marvel's What If. So the style of the poster is also made to look like, just go back for a minute on that. So the style of the poster is also made to look like it's a comic book cover, right? It looks like a Marvel comic cover, like cosmic entities that are just fighting. It's supposed to be a poster for a heavyweight fight. So the original idea was to show like a kaiju fight with two like larger than life people punching the shit out of each other, right? But then that kind of turned into, hey, what if we show um, two people that are like so big, they're like almost cosmic in scale, right? That there are tiny planets around them, they're that big. Also another level of storytelling in the poster like this was a title unification poster, right? So it was an undisputed fighter versus an interim champion, sort of fighting to unify the title. So both of them have titles around them. Like if you see the guy on the left has a golden title because he's the undisputed champion, whereas the guy on the right, who is the interim champion, has a silver title around him. So similar level of storytelling is also with crowns. Both of them are champions technically. So both of them have crowns, whereas one has a golden crown, one has a silver crown. So a lot of those layered storytelling elements are something that I've tried to include in the series. You can go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. These were just some character illustrations.
Yeah, it has ended.
Yeah, yeah, that's about it.
All right.
So that is broadly what you like. Hopefully, you guys get an idea of what my work is all about. And I
100%.
think
And
now we can delve into.
when I like first saw what Aditya is creating, it's just so insane to see that uh how deep you can get. So guys, if you are you a fan of UFC? Like, because if you don't understand what you're designing for, you won't be able to understand okay, how we can actually play with that thing. Am I right, sir? Because if you don't
Yeah, I
understand the
mean,
belts and everything and the levels of what exactly is going to happen in
it,
the game, it won't make sense.
the whole idea with this project was to do a better job at doing a storytelling centric poster than what UFC is doing at the moment,
Mm-hmm,
right?
100%. And
Maybe I might also do a poster series about movies, right? But I the only reason I picked UFC is because one, I'm a fan of UFC, and the second is I feel like there's only places where design intervention is actually needed is where you need to sort of spend your efforts in it, because I feel like there are a lot of movie posters who have now sort of come around and they kind of realized that the floating heads don't work anymore. And so they, like, if you see movie posters for things like, let's say, Superman, right, the
yeah,
Superman movie that's coming right now, or the Fantastic Four movie, I think they've done a fantastic job with designing both the posters and their communications. So I think that change is happening in movies. So I at the moment I think this is one place where
I
we
think
could have done something different.
for sure, but sir, if you like actually look at, I have like seen so many designers on Behance. I've seen so many projects on Dribble. I've like went through so many designs people post in our Discord and tag us in their reels and stuff like that. Everyone is working, but the level that you are at, I think it is very very commendable to achieve that specific thing. So, huge respect
I
for
mean,
you.
it has to come from a place of like actual love for the subject that you're exploring, right? So whatever it is, like, I think it's about finding what your calling is as an illustrator or a designer. Let's say you like animals, you like history, whatever, right? Find that thing that you really like, and like it doesn't make sense to do things that you're not into, right? It's because you will never be able to reach that deep level of, let's say, storytelling in this case, right? That you would if you know the subject in and out.
Yeah,
There's a difference between designing a book cover when you've actually read the book versus designing a book cover based on like the brief sent by the client, right? So if you listen to a song and you understand what the, like, for example, you're designing for a music, like a musician,
yeah.
if you know the artist, you know their music, you understand where they're coming from, versus, oh hey, this is what the artist wants you to make, this is what you make. There's I think there's a difference there.
And that's why I called you only for illustrations part, because obviously this is a design zone and everything, but as you can see in the chat, obviously I'm really sorry guys for all the disturbances caused today because of internet. It's still lagging. What I'll do is from tomorrow I'll get one Ethernet cable and I'll slap that on my Mac using a Type C. I hope that works out. I was not aware that this bad weather can affect internet in some sort of ways. I don't know what's happening, but I'll make sure to fix that. So sorry, sir, for the interrupted experience for you also.
No worries, man, it's okay.
So what
Okay.
we'll do is now, there are a lot of questions that I have, but if you had to give starter, because a lot of people here in the call today are beginners, so what will be some tips for you for our brand designers here if they have like a very limited time when they will be designing, but obviously they have like a week. Say for example, if someone has been giving a week, what tips will you give to these designers today to improve their work and make it time efficient also at the same time?
Mm. Okay, so that is a, I think That's a tricky question. It's like depends on the situation, right?
Yeah,
So this advice cannot be just, it's not one advice fits all. It
yeah,
also depends on context. So for example, a lot of times when what I've realized over the years is when you're working on certain projects, uh, clients come to you with a sense of urgency, right? And a lot of times that sense of urgency is not really based in something tangible.
yeah.
It's a created sense of urgency, right? The client will come to you and say like, hey, I want this tomorrow. Like, why? Like, is there an actual reason why you want it tomorrow? Like, sometimes there are things that cannot be changed, right?
Yep.
There are launches, for example, where the deadlines are actual hard set deadlines,
Yeah.
versus there are times when the deadlines are just client wanting to get things out of the way right away, but it's not really a real deadline because nothing is affect like the crossing of the deadline is not affecting the client or anybody else in a negative way,
Hmm.
right? So I think it's also important to understand or know when the deadline that you're getting from somebody is a real deadline or not a real deadline. And Because you can't keep working on every project with like a tight deadline, you will burn out, right? So I tend to advise people to figure out a way to manage projects better, manage your time better, get help when needed, outsource work if needed, right? You don't need to do every single aspect of a project. You can maybe build a team. Okay, hey, one person does this, the other person does this, right? Divide
Yeah.
the work amongst each other,
Yeah.
right? So that is one way you can speed up the process. The other way is maybe just push back on the clients and say, hey, you want this to be done right. This is what it takes to do it right. This is the time that's needed to actually make it work,
Yeah.
right? So I think it's a bit of both. Knowing when you can't really go, like for example, the festivals that I've worked on in the past, right? A lot of the timelines are hard set timelines because production gets affected based
Yeah.
on the delivery.
Yeah.
So in those cases, you have to do it no matter what.
Yeah.
Right? But a lot of sometimes, you know, when somebody's coming to you with an internal project and they tell you, oh, this is anyhow it needs to be done, but does it really? Like,
Hmm.
so yeah, I guess knowing that difference is
No,
important.
100%. And you know, the neat part is that obviously designers are designing today, right? And this whole idea of getting people like you here is to make sure that people in our chat understands how to observe. If they see, like, we designers work on observations, and right before this, Niklang sir here was saying कि observe करके ही सीखोगे, right? And seeing all of these inspirations on Pinterest and everything also helps, but I think implementation is also a big key. I'll stop on my questions.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm opening the panel for Aditya sir to answer your questions directly. Make sure to like take as many insights possible. Sir, also for you, make sure that you can cover most of them. Uh, you know
Right.
better, you know how
Do
to
you want
answer
to
better.
go over some of the questions? I feel like the questions that you had sent me, some of them were really good, and maybe we can go over some of them as well before we open it up to everybody.
Sure,
Like, so
sure.
people get like, because I think it will cover some of the things that people might ask you.
Makes sense. Yeah,
Okay.
done. So let me quickly ask you one question that I had written. So one very interesting question is obviously your work often tells rich, right, Aditya, and layered stories as we were seeing.
Mm-hmm.
How do you approach the storytelling aspect when you start a new project?
Mm-hmm. Storytelling. Right. So storytelling is something that is very inherent to
Hmm.
humans, right? Like that's how we make sense of the world around us, right? We try to create a story. You see a cloud and it kind of looks like a rabbit, and then you have made up a story in your mind of what it is, right?
Yeah,
Or you look at something that could potentially resemble a face, and then you're like, oh hey, this looks like a face, because it is our tendency to find meaning in things, right? So so it's important to understand what kind of a storyteller you are, right? It is something that comes with years of practice and conscious effort, right? And a little bit of self-awareness to know what kind of a storyteller you are, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses. Some people are great with words, some people are great with visuals.
hmm.
Knowing that sort of helps, right? For example, I am not necessarily the best when it comes to writing a story, or like my thinking happens in a more visual sense. So like the few times I have actually made a comic book, way I have done it is I have actually just drawn the story in thumbnails
Hmm.
and then filled up the dialogues in it and used, or maybe reached out to one of my writer friends to help me fill up the dialogues there. But it's about knowing what your storytelling skills are.
Yeah.
The other way of storytelling, like, so I'm also sometimes a lazy person, right? So I would, like, one of the reasons why I don't do comics very often is because the amount of time and effort it takes to create those
Yeah.
is, I could do 100 illustrations in that time, instead of doing a comic book, right? 100 different things. So in one single piece, I try to fill up as much storytelling elements as possible. So
Hmm.
layer, so once I figured out what the piece is about, right, then it's just about how much you want, like what level of symbolism you want to put in there, right?
Makes
And
sense.
sometimes that is what people expect from you. So that's what I've realized later is like, there, like, people had this expectation from my work that I will have detailed storytelling or like detailed symbolism, layered symbolism, meanings within meanings in my work. And sometimes just a blue curtain is a blue curtain and it does not represent sadness.
Yeah.
So you, when you, and that is an expectation that's put on you. Sometimes when you don't even intend to put meaning in things or don't even intend to put storytelling or symbolism in things, people will put meaning and like added storytelling elements to it, right? Like I said, like you see a cloud and, oh, it looks like a rabbit, for example, right? It's just a cloud. So sometimes an illustration is just an illustration, it's not, but
Yeah.
so you need to be able to play with people's
100%.
expectations also. It's like
A little
sometimes
bit
I
of
will
like
just do something that
manipulation.
makes no sense but
Hmm.
put it out, and
Hmm.
like, okay, you want to interpret it however you want. And sometimes people come up with this, like the most interesting interpretations of it that I would have never thought of. So it's like
Makes sense.
there's no one way to go about this, right? Everything has like multiple ways. This is just I'm telling you based on my experience. So yeah.
Makes sense, sir. Makes sense. And like also like I've seen, I was when I was like going through your work, uh, obviously when you were showing your previous works, and I like checked out your previous works also. There's a sort of evolution and like sort of a learning curve that everyone goes through, right? So
Mm.
how was your evolution process like, and do you think there is more to it? That obviously it like obviously a thing is evolving with time, right? But do you think there is
Yeah.
more to it coming from you after all, and like is there a level where a designer will reach and a sort of innovation point sort of, and uske aage nahi jayega, and like now the things are there? Do you think that happens?
I'm sure it happens. People do reach their peaks, right? But at the same time, it's also dependent on them of how they, what they do once they reach that, right?
Hmm.
Um, I think in terms of skill, um, I don't know if I can cross my skill threshold at this
Hmm.
point, right? But what I can do is find other ways to sort of do something different, that, like, because I'm not, okay, I'm not a classically trained artist, right? You can't compare my illustration skills with somebody like somebody who's gone through an art school, right, where they've spent years and years just drawing human figures, right? So I am an illustrator. I'm a commercial illustrator, so I am focused more on storytelling and selling ideas
Yeah.
and making sure that my illustrations work on a commercial level and not so much the
Hmm.
artistic quality is not something that I'm focusing on,
You
right?
are focusing on
So,
the client needs and like more making more commercial and everything.
no, not just that, but it's
Hmm.
also like it's not about skill. That's not what I'm trying to do, right? I'm
Makes
not
sense.
trying to show you how well I can draw something. I'm trying to communicate an idea. So as long as that idea gets communicated, I'm okay with that. So again, to answer your question, it's a little like I know my answer is a little
No, no, no,
chaotic,
100%. I can
but
follow it very well. I think I'm 100% sure that people are also able to find it and
so
follow it well, because your way
so
of like
my
your choice of words are very simple. So don't worry on that.
yeah, my explanation also a little non-linear.
Yeah, yeah,
So just
100%.
to come back from start, like my evolution has been with different tools. That's where I feel like I like. So just a little bit background. My Instagram used to be called Wanderer Art. The idea was inspired by a Tolkien quote: "All those who wander are not lost." Right. So
Hmm.
the thought came from not wanting to settle with one thing.
Hmm.
Right. Just do something, get a good hang of it, move on to the next, right? Wander to the next thing, right? So I always, that was kind of my philosophy in back in the day, right? Where I didn't really care about developing one style. I have done one style for a bit, dropped it, started something new, and I keep changing, switching styles,
Hmm.
right? And a lot of the style switches have happened because of the tools that I've worked with. When I started out, I like back in the day when I was a kid, like this is when I was in school, I was good at drawing, but I was never good at painting. So it's like every time I learned a new skill, there's a new sort of dimension that was unlocked, right? It's almost
Hmm.
like a game where you level up, constantly level up, right? So it's learning how to paint with watercolors was a game changer. I suddenly could do things that I couldn't earlier, right? Then acrylic opened up a whole new sort of a medium for, okay, I can do these kind of things with acrylic that I can't do with watercolor, right? And that would in turn affect the kind of things I'm drawing, the things I am sort of like, the way I'm drawing, right? My thinking while drawing also was shaped by the tools.
Hmm.
Then when I moved to digital, like I feel like a lot of people who are starting out right now have been in digital from the very beginning. I got into digital maybe in the second year, third year of my college, right? I was used to work with a Cintiq or Wacom, and my work was very painterly and very like, if you go back to 2000s, pre 2017 work, you will see a lot more concept artish work, right?
Hmm.
More
Hmm.
painterly
Yeah.
sort of work. Whereas you move before that, you would see a lot more pen and ink work. You
Hmm.
move before that, you'll see acrylic. You'll see before that, you see watercolor. Like it's like these, each era is kind of defined by the tool that I'm working with.
Makes sense.
And I think 2020 onwards, I when I switched to an iPad, that's when I think um, the kind of style that I have sort of developed at this point, which is
Hmm.
almost a fusion of my different styles together, right?
Yeah.
Kind of happened because of the tool
Yeah.
that I was working with.
Yeah.
Similarly, another example of that is, this is something that we do internally, right? At DAM, when we're designing logos, right? We don't use like pens, or we don't use Photoshop or Illustrator right away. We start with like something like a marker, because when you're working with a marker, a thick marker, there are limitations that the tool has. The thickness of the marker will prevent you from going into detail, right? So when you're working on a large sheet and you are working with a thick marker, you're forced to draw with thick chunky shapes, and you're forced to think about ideas without going into details. So essentially, the tool that you're using is kind of shaping your workflow. And based on different projects that you're working on, you use different tools to sort of influence that, right? If I want somebody to do detail, I would give them a micron pen to start doing detail. But if I want someone to think, okay, just do raw ideation, just do like 100 logos, right? Use a chunky marker and just start scribbling, and you have speed with that also, that you won't have with a detail pen, right? Like a
That's
micron
a
pen,
that's
for
a very
example.
cool thinking, and I think obviously this has never wow this sort of change in just the size of the brush like helps out so much. Wow, this is a very good take from for me personally because I'm also a designer, and one very frequently asked question to every single designer out there is how do you find your style? And there are like multiple takes that I have seen. I want to understand your take also. From what I feel, I might be wrong. I think that how every person carries themselves differently, that's how their style is somehow. But at the same time, it's just clothes, right? At the same time, it's just way of things that they wear and stuff like that. So I think I relate that style of design to the style of the person and how they carry themselves. That's my personal take. What do you think about it?
Okay, that's a interesting take. But again, there are two ways to look at this. The
Hmm.
way I look at it is slightly different. It's because okay, there are people whose style is what you're saying, right? It is their vibe essentially.
Yeah.
It is just who they are, right? That's how they draw. That's how their brain works when they're drawing something.
Hmm.
That is a style choice that you don't really have a lot of flexibility with. It's like that's just what comes naturally to you. That's one way to
Hmm.
do it. Whereas there are other people who are style agnostic and can pick up like styles based on what is needed. Right. I, to a large extent, see myself more as a designer more so than a visual artist, right?
Hmm.
Sure, I am a visual artist as well, but like, um, I I look at a project more so as what does this project need, more so than this is what I do. That's why I'm doing this project in this way.
Hmm.
There is no right way or wrong way about this, right? It's there are two different approaches. There are illustrators who are known for a specific style, and people go to them and clients go to them for that style, right? That is one way you can sort of, that is also possibly the more profitable way of going about it,
Hmm.
where you develop that one style, one unique look that is specific to you, right? And people come to you just for that, right? So that's one way to go about it, because that builds recall with people. Whereas I have, like I said, my it's always been like I get bored of just doing one thing.
Hmm.
So I have always preferred the idea of, okay, this project needs this. So let me do this instead of something else. So that's my approach.
And
That
also,
has also
yeah, yeah, yeah,
affected the level of recognizability my work would have, right? But at the same time, there are people who've been following my work over the years. They are able to find that recognizability because they're like, oh hey, there are certain, even though your style is different, there are certain things that are common in all of them. There are certain colors that you do, there are
yeah.
certain characters that you draw, certain types of poses you do, or certain animals or themes or whatever motifs that you have, right? So people with sharper eyes can notice that, but they're a little bit less nuanced. I mean, they're more nuanced than something where a person drawing somebody in a specific way, right? It's like there's a sort of a difference in that. There's
Very
no right way or wrong way. It's just two
100%.
approaches.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree with you. And as I said, there are multiple takes on every single thing. And one more interesting, like a sort of slightly different opinion based question is, do you believe in creative block? And have you faced one? And if yes, how did you get out of it?
It's a double layered sort of
Yeah.
question. I mean, like, yes, I have faced creative block. I don't believe in it. As it's like it's. I feel like creative block is just you need to figure out how to hack it, right? There's burnouts are very real. I have experienced burnouts, but at the same time, creative block is just a burnout disguised as something else. You just need some time off. You just need to take a break. The other way to address a creative block is probably you are not consuming enough content. You're not,
Hmm.
okay, that's not the right way to say. Content is, no, you're not consuming enough things. You're not giving your brain enough inputs. So you're not reading enough books, you're not listening to enough music, watching good movies, you're not talking to people, you're not enriching yourself. There's nothing going in for you to produce something, right?
Hmm.
You can't produce something out of nothing, right? It's important to know that nothing is original. Like whatever you do is coming from somewhere. It's coming from that one conversation you had with some friend of yours years ago, or like, just something that you ate that inspired you to do something in a different way,
Hmm.
right? Or a building that you saw that was interesting.
Yeah.
So you're not putting in enough in your system to sort of be able to create something fresh, and maybe that's why you're having a creative block. That's one way. Or the other is just take a break. You need to give yourself rest.
Yeah, and this is what a lot of people have been like mentors have been telling, that go out, like just spend time away from screen also, and like as you said, consume more uh media, consume and listen to music. I relate to that
Yeah.
because I have also sort of faced burnt out, because like not like burnout, but like I've lost sort of innovation in my art. Like everything was like becoming repetitive, and I was like not getting
Yeah.
satisfied. And then I like stopped for a week. I went back. I did gaming. I did all the things that I like, and then jumped it back, and innovation started to flow again. So these are my
There's
yeah.
a very specific so it's important to understand how brain works as well to an
Hmm.
extent, and how different types of thinking work. So there's one thinking which is called type one style of thinking which is called inspirational thinking, which is what I'm
Hmm.
talking about. Which So basically what I'm trying to do is sort of demystify creativity, right? Because people feel like creativity is this magical mystical thing that somehow you just get ideas and out of thin air you conjure things, right? That's not what creativity is, right? Speaking of inspirational thinking is when you consume a lot of content, like we were talking about. Let's say we are working on a project. The research part of a project is like, usually when I get a brief, for the first 5 days at least, I'm not touching the project. I am only doing research, I'm only collecting information, I'm only just doing data gathering. And then it's just about absorbing all of it, like letting it simmer, do something mindless, go wash dishes, go for a walk, right? When you like, why do you think people get the craziest ideas at the most unconventional places, right? Let's say people say they get ideas in showers, or like they get ideas when they're on the toilet, right? For example, that's because when you're doing the most mindless things is when your brain is in the background processing the information that you're consumed, and it's working to
Yeah.
create meaning out of things, right? And those are the times when you get those aha eureka moments. So that is what inspirational thinking is. So once you learn how to do that, all you need to realize is just, okay, I'm not getting an idea, maybe just let's go for a walk, let's just consume things and not think about this for the next 2 days.
Hmm.
And again, this is not very formulaic, right? I don't mean to say that 2 days is what it takes. Different people, different, like
Yeah.
mileages, I guess. People who've been doing this for a long time, these ideas come very fast to them. When people are starting out, it's like people who have been doing this for a long time, it's almost like a well-oiled machine where, like, it's you don't need to put a lot of input because a lot of input has already gone in there,
Yeah.
right? So
Just a little bit
uh,
to start the machine one more time.
right,
Makes
right.
sense. Makes sense. Great perspective. Those are my questions. Guys, now please open the chat is open. Go ahead, ask any questions you have. Keep the questions short, and I will say ki, take as many tips as possible. Take tips for designathon if you have. And sir, I'll leave this to you, and then we'll end it. And yeah, that's it.
Oh, hey, I see Devanshu here in the chat.
Let's
Hey
go.
man, how's it going?
So now I think the chat is visible to you, right?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect.
We know creative block or burnout, but sometimes if I take more content from inspiration, I'm overwhelmed. Okay. Okay. Just to clarify, what you're saying is, y- how do you separate taking inspiration from something while you're consuming something new, and making sure that it doesn't seep into your work? Is that what you mean? I'm a little confused by that question. Born clever, your question. Hello. Uh,
Yes, sir.
no, is that what that question means? Like, I'm a little confused by that.
So
Yeah.
basically,
Okay.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
So what I personally sort of, at least what has been sort of conveyed, like my mentors have taught me, right, is if you're designing a logo, stop looking at other people's logos, right? Whatever it is that you're designing or drawing or whatever, look at inspiration outside that. Let's say designing logos, look at maybe architecture, look at maybe fashion, right? Look for inspiration outside your realm of work. That's like, why do people who are designing, let's say, vehicles, a lot of times they look at like living organisms as a reference, right? Why not draw inspiration from nature itself? So it's about finding unique sources of inspiration, right? Looking at logos on Pinterest is what will give you the most generic ideas, but if you go on a walk, you go find a newspaper somewhere or some random book where you find some interesting patterns, motifs, you take a picture of that, you turn it into something else, right? That's where you get some unique ideas when you actually step out of the expected sort of bubble that you would be in, right? Or your comfort zone. That's why you'll find some unique ideas. So, as a rule, when we are making mood boards at our studio, we tell people not to. Okay, you're designing a mood board for for a logo. I do not want to see a single logo in the mood board. I want to see everything but logos in it. Right. That's one way to sort of keep your ideas fresh. That's one way to make sure you don't end up copying things unintentionally, because a lot of times people don't really copy with the intention of copying. They just don't know that what they're doing is copying. So it's important to sort of be able to uh, find sources that are unique. Yeah. How do you onboard clients? Like you said, you take 5 days to gather. Oh no, I think you misunderstood my point. The 5 days that I said was essentially, once we have signed the client, once the project is a go, first 5 days I don't actually start working on it, right? It's this data collection time. That's when you collect information about the project, you do research about the subject, right? You understand, you do interviews, you don't do the actual work that you're supposed to be doing with the final product. uh, it's important to know not to rush into actually making, because that's the that's the the sort of like the trouble most young designers get into is, right, they're so in rush to start working, right? They want to start doing things and not really taking that time that you need to think and understand the subject, take a minute, pause, right? So I think that's what I was trying to tell you earlier. How Once, if you could help me with some of these questions, because there are a lot of questions
Yeah,
coming
yeah.
in, so
Let
maybe
me help you.
filter. Yeah.
Let me help you. Okay, give me 1 second. Okay, Renata is asking, how do we know whether a particular visual language or identity
Mm.
aligns with the goals, users, and context of the projects we are designing for?
Hmm. Uh, See, to a large extent, this is something that is a judgment call on your part as a somebody who's a creative director of a project, right? You need to know if it aligns with the brief, right? For example, a lot of times you'll be working on projects where a client will have a personal preference, like, hey, I like this is what we should do. But there, it's your duty to tell the client that, hey, if this is the target audience that you're looking for, this is the goal that you're trying to achieve, and if this is the strategy that we have come up with, then what you want and your preferences are not aligned with that, right? It's about making a logical argument, and um, also, like you said, it's about knowing if this is the right way or not, right? So I think that comes with a little bit of experience. It's not something that can be taught, right? um, you can try and analyze things and become a little bit more analytical as a person to see if your goal and your output are aligned or not, right? That is one way you can look at it, but it's again something that comes with skill and experience. And again, if you are somebody who's starting out right now, maybe a way you can sort of do this is find the right mentors for you, people who have that experience, who can maybe look at your problem statement or whatever, your work, and tell you that, oh hey, this is working or this is not working, right? It's important to have mentors that will do that for you, or critics who will do that for you. Yeah.
One more interesting question we have here from Wave Walker Media. So, do you think we should master every tool in our field possible, or master some of the
Mhm.
limited tools which are going to help to make things done?
No, I honestly can't master every single thing, right? You know, like there are people who are generalists. I don't think I am one of those. I can't, like, I may be a generalist in illustration, maybe to an extent. I'm not a generalist as a creative professional. I'm not necessarily the best when it comes to 3D. I can do some 3D sculpting. I know enough about animation. I have done enough animation to know how to direct somebody who I'm working with about how to animate a particular project that I'm working on. So I think it's more important to understand the tool enough to be able to direct somebody, right? Why do you want to do every single thing? You end up becoming a master of none, right? But again, that's just my personal take. There are people who are capable of being generalists, right? Who are good at doing different things and becoming like really good at that, right? Multiple different skill sets, and power to them. Like there's no one way to go about this. But I personally believe that I would much rather hire somebody to do that or outsource some of that work to somebody else. Why not help a fellow creator out with, collaborating with them, where you bring your best skill forward whereas they bring their best skill forward. And that's how, like, the creative community is very collaborative, and I think we should make more use of it, and instead of trying to do everything ourselves.
All right. Then Born Clever is again asking a very good question. He's asking, has it ever happened to you that you lied to a client, but that goes in the right direction for you and the client also?
I'm not going to tell you which client I lied for, but yes, I have. In the sense, I'm not. It's not. It's a white lie. It's not a, like. It's obviously not with an intention to harm anybody, right? Somebody asked me, "Hey, can you animate?" And at that point, I was like, "Yes, I can definitely animate." And I obviously could not, right? So I learned how to animate for that project, and it worked out well. I learned a new skill. The client was very happy with the work that I did. I'm not still the best animator, but I that project particularly helped me out learning enough animation to direct somebody how to animate a future project of mine. Yeah, does if that helps.
Awesome.
Is
Ananya is
that
asking,
what you meant? Like, is that the
yes,
does
yes,
that answer
yes,
your question?
yes. I think it does. Then we have Ananya asking how to level up our ideas and creativity of making posters, packaging, and illustrations. Basically, leveling up ideas.
Right. So I think leveling up is it's okay. This is something that may make me sound like an unk, but it's just practice, man. You just have to keep doing this. You have to create large quantities of work, which a lot of fresh designers I see are not doing. When I was start like this is like hamare zamane mein shit, man. Like when I was starting out, I was also very obsessive with my work, so I would just literally every week at least I would try to make something. Like I would post an artwork or two artworks a week on an average earlier. Like if you see, like what you see on my Instagram is probably 20% of the work I have actually made. A lot of it is just archived, which nobody has seen or has seen but has forgotten at this point. It's important that you create. The quantity is how you sort of level up. Quality is not how you level up. If you want to truly level up, it's about assigning, okay, I'm going to spend XYZ amount of time a day on something. You spend that much time on it and you leave it at the, let's say you want to level up at, let's say, posters, right? Design a poster a day, right? Don't give it unrealistic timelines where you spend an hour every day. That's not possible, probably. How about 15 minutes? Can you design a poster in 15 minutes? I'm sure you can do something, right? You may start, it may not be the best poster you begin with at the start, but let's say every day, 15 minutes, you put a timer and you sit and make a poster. And at the end of the timer, you stop, right? At wherever stage, whatever stage it is at. It doesn't matter if it's finished or not. You just leave it. Next day, you get back to it and you keep doing the same. What you'll realize is by the end of the 30 days you have massively leveled up, right? Because and versus a person who spends weeks and weeks on this one artwork, right? And versus a person who does maybe seven artworks in that time, right? The quality is probably not the same, right? But the learning and the growth is much more when you're focusing on quantity. That's just how our brain works. So just understanding how humans learn is also probably important in learning how to level up as well, right? So maybe you guys might want to check that a little bit. The consistency is more important than actually spending hours and hours on this one thing.
100%. And I agree with what Aditya is saying today. And I guys, I'm I'm sure please go watch this again if you like lost some of the parts because of the internet. But the logic is it's practice, right? So and it's hardcore mindset towards improvement. And I think that's what a human can do and master anything, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, pretty much. It's just like consistently doing one thing is what will get you to
Yeah,
improve in that.
yeah. All right. Thank you so much, guys. I have sent Aditya sir's. So okay, so sorry. मैं बार बार आदित्य को sir बोलता हूँ and like I have gotten this habit of like speaking sir and sir again and again, and it's I know it's like very annoying for people, and I'm so sorry for that. But thank you so much, Aditya, for doing this with us finally. And obviously, we're gonna plan a lot of offline meetups, so you'll catch Aditya offline mostly in either Mumbai we are gonna do or
Maybe we can do something like this again as well because I feel like a lot of people still have a lot more questions.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't mind going a little longer, but I don't know. You've already done a session for this. I
Yes,
assume so. I mean, you take that call. We can maybe schedule another one later as well.
hundred
That
percent.
also works.
100%. We can
Yeah.
what we can do is because this is a part of the competition, we can like do a separate conversation where okay, Aditya is answering all the domains and all the questions that he can, and like in a much more better way when I have good internet. I'm actually disappointed because of this internet because it's jittering and I'm not satisfied. So that's why we'll end it here with you, Aditya, today. But we'll take a photo with you.
Sure.
And guys, please make sure to follow Aditya on Insta and consume and take as many inspiration as you can from him for this
Feel free to
competition.
reach out to me if you guys have any doubts or questions. Right. I would try to respond as many people as I can.
100%. And it's so nice to see that Aditya owns his drawings also, and like his illustration is literally behind him, and that's what I've not seen a lot of people do because they, as you said, they are designing for commercial and they just get lost in the idea of making money, right? And they don't appreciate their own artworks. And I think that's one of the biggest problems I've seen because I've met so many designers, so they don't own their art, and that's the issue.
Okay, that's interesting. I never thought about that. Like, I mean, this was the first piece I painted after a long time, so I
Mm.
thought I need this. I need this in my workroom. So yeah,
Yeah, Manish, we covered this question. You can watch it by rewinding this. Is it? Yeah, it's back. Perfect. So let's take a quick photo and we'll let you go. Yeah,
sounds
three,
good.
three, two, one, go. Thank you so much, Aditya, for doing this with us.
Awesome.
And I will surely fix the net next time and make sure this does not happen again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, sounds
Th-
good.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
वापस से
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. It's okay. It's okay. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Appreciate all the questions. We'll do this again soon.
Yes, for sure. Take care, sir. Take care, Aditya. Good night.
Good night,
Good
man. All
night.
right.